amidst the recent media reports on the tragic deja vu that is the mass shooting epidemic in this country, well, a Republican assemblywoman for Nevada has a new type of investigation that she's launching, and is not into gun ownership or access to gun, is not into religious affiliation or racial motives. It's one into the possible relationship in between pharmaceutical drugs that are commonly taken by these mass shooters and the possible decay in their mental health. Now, this is coming from Republican assemblywoman Michele Fiore, that has become, noteworthy in the past for statements such as cancer is just a fungus and we should allow people to just flush it off with some salt water. She said that she actually tried to push legislation to allow her constituents to refrain from medical treatment and choose, if they want to treat their cancer with a combination of salt waters that you just flush, because cancer is a fungus. So her credibility is not very high, but at the same time she does puts the finger on a maybe correlation that has been talked about before, about the amount of mass shooters that are under the influence or the effects of these type of drugs and the violence that they commit. Well,
and I'm not defending this woman, but in some cases, devil's advocate here, so in some cases when you have an antipsychotic, it can have an adverse reaction in someone, particularly if they're relatively young and their brain cells are still developing. I've heard of that before. But these guys were already 3 fucking sheets to the wind and crazy anyway, and they're on these antipsychotics for a reason. And can you imagine if they weren't taking them?
Exactly.
I mean, if this is the outcome, and I'm not, these young men that have all committed violent crimes behind us, arguably in desperate need of medication.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the argument of many, that they say, well, if they were sick, they were seeking treatment is just a regular thing, that they have medication, like many others that are being helped by medication in their life, that they defeat depression or psychosis through the use of medication. And there is a group of people that they do not, and they actually act upon violent wishes. But the numbers are very clear. We have 26 high-profile mass shooters that have been on medication when they commit these crimes. Dylan Roof, a lot was talked about how he acquired the guns.
But we don't know if he was taking it regularly. We don't know his dosage of medication.
We know that he had a history. He was arrested before because he was acting suspiciously on Bed Bath & Beyond. And when the cops came and arrested him, he had on his pockets Suboxone, which is a drug that is used normally to treat the addiction to heroin. That has, and it's proven, some violent side effects. But not only that, we've seen cases back to '89 where these mass shooters or mass killers have been under treatment or use of these drugs so much, and we haven't talked about it as much, because we could force Pharma accountable and say in the past they have to settle down out of court for their possible involvement, not involvement, but responsibility.
There's a liability issue, because
you
can't control the outcome of every single medication, and specifically when it's given to minors, as it were in some of these cases where brain cells are still developing. There are cases, it's legitimately proven, not to make this woman's point for her because she sounds like a lunatic, but there are cases where this medicine does have an adverse reaction emotionally, psychotically, in people. I mean, that's just the way that it is.
Yes, I agree with you, and you have a point. But also a very important point that we have to remember is that the use of these drugs have skyrocketed in the last 20 years. Today, 1 out of 10 Americans is using these prescriptions, is using antidepressants or antipsychotics 4 times as much as back in 1990. So the spread use, and how easy it is for psychiatrists to now give this prescription out to every, younger and younger patients is kind of scary. And I think that's where the regulation comes in. And I think that's the only positive outcome of this proposal, is that we might be able to look into, are we just pushing this in favor of the big pharma profit? And
Probably.
So I think that's a very important point that she maybe, without knowing, might bring forward, and something that might be of a positive outcome, to see if really we are allowing big pharma just to push these prescriptions so much that the margin of crazies that actually do not benefit from them is growing so much and is becoming so violent that we have these mass shootings. That is not saying that because you are on medication, you will become a mass shooter, and I think that's a lie that we have to fight. We have to look into all the aspects of the story, gun control, mental health, but we want to know your opinion. Share it below in the comment section, and if you haven't, please subscribe to the Lip TV.